Hello guys, how are you? In this video, I came to tell you a scary story that I hope you will like and make you click on the subscribe button and support us. If you have an opinion about the story, write me in the comments. Thank you. Well, let's go to the story to see what the story is about. The school dormitory, located on the outskirts of the city, was an old and isolated building that had housed boarding students for years. Amir, a new student, quickly realized that a strange atmosphere lingered over the dormitory at night. All the students were afraid of the night watchman. He was a tall, thin man with a gaunt face who roamed the dark hallways with a dim flashlight. But what unsettled Amir the most was the watchman's stare. His eyes seemed too real, as if they could see straight through him. One night, Amir decided to uncover the truth. He stayed awake until midnight, and when he heard the watchman's footsteps in the hallway, he quietly got up and peeked through his window. The watchman strolled slowly through the courtyard, but suddenly, his movements changed. Without turning his head, he stared directly at Amir's window. Amir's heart pounded in his chest. Had the watchman seen him? The flashlight went out, and in the next moment, he vanished into the darkness. From that night on, every time Amir closed his eyes, he felt as if someone was standing in his room, watching him. Amir could no longer sleep at night. Every time the lights went out, he heard a faint yet terrifying whisper from the corner of his room. On the fourth night, he decided to leave his bedside lamp on, but at midnight, the dormitory's power was suddenly cut off. His room plunged into absolute darkness. Then, the sound of heavy breathing echoed from the hallway. Amir held his breath. Slow, deliberate footsteps approached his door. The doorknob rattled gently. Amir dared not move. With trembling hands, he grabbed his phone to use its screen as a light source, but it slipped from his grasp and shattered on the floor. A moment later, the door creaked open softly. Amir wanted to scream, but no sound escaped his throat. Something stood in the darkness. Amir squeezed his eyes shut, hoping it was just his imagination. But the presence in the room was undeniable. He could hear it breathing, slow and deliberate, as if savoring his fear. Then, a whisper slithered through the air, chilling him to the bone. "You shouldn't have watched." Amir's pulse thundered in his ears. His fingers trembled as he reached for the broken pieces of his phone. A dim light flickered from the hallway, casting a faint silhouette into his room. The figure was tall, unnaturally thin, its head tilting at an unnatural angle. Summoning all his courage, Amir lunged toward the bedside lamp, desperately flicking the switch. Light flooded the room. But the figure had vanished. The door stood open, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth. Panting, Amir sat on his bed, his mind racing. Whatever it was real and it was coming back. The next morning, Amir barely managed to stay awake during his classes. His mind was consumed with the events of the night before. Was it a dream? A hallucination? Or was something truly haunting the dormitory? As he changed his shirt, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror. His heart stopped. On his wrist, there was a dark, bruised mark, a handprint. It was as if someone had gripped him tightly in his sleep. Panic surged through him. He rushed to the bathroom and scrubbed at the mark, but it wouldn't fade. That night, determined to find answers, Amir set up his phone's camera to record while he slept. The following morning, with shaking hands, he checked the footage. At exactly 3:12 a.m., his sleeping form shifted, as if something unseen was pressing down on him. And then, suddenly, the watchman's face appeared in the corner of the screen, staring directly into the camera. The video ended abruptly. Amir's blood ran cold. The watchman was not human. And now, he knew Amir was watching. That night, Amir couldn't bring himself to sleep. The eerie silence of the dormitory was deafening. Every tick of the clock felt like an eternity. He wrapped himself in his blanket, gripping his phone tightly. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the temperature in his room dropped suddenly. The light bulb flickered and then dimmed. A creaking noise came from the ceiling, as if something heavy was crawling above him. Then, the closet door, which he had locked before going to bed, slowly creaked open. A shadow moved inside. Amir's breath caught in his throat. His body froze in terror as a long, skeletal hand reached out from the darkness of the closet. Its fingers, unnaturally long, stretched toward him, beckoning silently. With a sudden burst of courage, Amir lunged for his bedside lamp, switching it on. Light flooded the room. The closet was empty. But the door was still wide open. Amir's paranoia grew worse each day. The sight of his wrist's bruised handprint never left his mind. The mysterious figure in his room continued to haunt him, and his once peaceful dormitory was now a terrifying place where sleep was impossible. One night, after a long day of trying to avoid his thoughts, Amir decided to leave the dorm and take a walk outside. As he wandered through the empty courtyard, he noticed something strange. The soft rain had begun to fall, and the ground was damp. He turned a corner and froze. There, on the ground, were blood-stained footprints, leading toward the back of the building. His heart raced. Amir hesitated for a moment, then followed the trail of blood. At the end of the path, he found the watchman's flashlight, abandoned in the wet grass. A cold shiver ran down Amir's spine. Suddenly, he heard a low whisper, so close to his ear that he jumped. "You shouldn't have come." Spinning around, Amir found himself face to face with the watchman. His hollow eyes stared at him. And the room was filled with silence. Amir woke up the next morning to find his room shrouded in an unnatural stillness. He had not heard the whispers during the night, nor seen the dark figure. But something felt wrong. He walked to the bathroom to wash his face. As he glanced into the mirror, he froze in terror. There, behind him, was a reflection of the watchman. The figure stood still, eyes locked on him. Amir's mouth went dry. He spun around. But the room was empty. The figure, though, remained in the mirror. And it was smiling. Amir could no longer tell what was real and what wasn't. The boundaries between sleep and wakefulness blurred. He had stopped leaving his room, fearing the watchman's constant presence, but one evening, as he sat in the dark, he heard a faint knock at his door. He opened it cautiously. On the other side, there was no one. Instead, there was a door he had never seen before, just a dark wooden door, standing quietly in the hallway. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. And when he opened it, he stepped into the void. Amir stumbled through the door into an endless corridor. The walls seemed to stretch on forever. The air was thick with an oppressive silence. He walked forward, hoping to find a way out, but the hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before him. The only sound was the steady beat of his own heartbeat. And then, the whispers returned. "Come closer," they beckoned. Amir's heart hammered in his chest. It was too late to turn back. Amir was no longer sure how much time had passed. His steps echoed in the silent hallway. Eventually, he came to a room, a small, dimly lit chamber. There, sitting in the corner, was the watchman. It seems that I can't continue the story in the same format at the moment. Would you like me to provide the rest of the story directly in this chat? Well, thank you for staying with me until the end of the video. I hope the video was useful to you. If you like this style of videos, check out my channel and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for more videos and stories.